host, Douglas Grummins. Thank you for joining me today. It feels good to be back in the studio. And today's topic is going to be the case for God. Would the world be better off with God or without God? With religion or without religion? Which would be the best for humanity at this point? Our secular friends could have a point with people blowing each other up in the streets and running over other people with cars, stabbing people with knives, blowing up people with bombs, all in the name of religion. So they do have a good point. Would we be better off without religion? And again, our religious friends, those who take religion to heart, they have a good point too, that there are so many good things that come from religion. Religion gives us a strong basis for love, and it serves humanity in many ways and many needs, feeding the unfortunate, taking care of the homeless. There are many good things about religion. In the very basis of religion, it gives us a sense of hope, hope for the future, hope that things will get better. So many people rely on this hope and have this basis of love, which the hope springs from. But there are those that are the extremists on both sides, those for the case and those against the case for religion, that these extremists are the ones that are out in the streets causing most of the trouble. There are 62 million Americans who go to church and pray to God, and you'll never hear about anything they do in the evening news or in the national news because they're just normal people. They don't go to extremes, but religion creates these extremities when things are taken too literally. Your average Christian or your average Muslim is not going to stone his wife just because she disobeyed him, even though it says so in the books that they follow. So it does seem that the 62 million Americans that pray to God are the Muslims or the Christians or the Judeo-Christians and all those in the Jewish faith that pray to God on a daily basis. Most of them seem to handpick or cherry-pick what they want to believe out of the Bibles, and therefore they don't take things to the extreme because they've cherry-picked the very best things. And there's a lot of the secularist community that believes that you can't do that. The author Christopher Hitchens, in his book God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything, made a strong case for those that cherry pick what they want out of their religion. And therein lies most of the trouble with religion, is that the extremists, the ones that follow the book literally to the T, to the very dot on every I, they say that you're a lukewarm Christian or you're not a good Muslim, you're not a true Muslim if you don't follow the Quran to the full letter of the book. I think I've heard or read before that half the population is Christian. Half of the Earth's population is Christian now. Probably the close to that is Muslim, and for the most part, I think everybody's getting along, but it is these people that take things to the extremes, the nut cases, the psycho jobs. Those are the ones that are giving God and religion too a really bad name. Another great mind on the secular side is Sam Harris, and Sam Harris would make a point that all these people are doing all these things and believing all these things off of really bad evidence, that there's not enough evidence in the world to prove a case for God. Just take a minute to think about it. I mean, really, is there enough evidence to prove that God exists or not? That's always been the question. Does God exist or doesn't he? And the truth is that it is both. And there was one mystic that had this explanation where he unfolded everything like 7 times. Like someone would ask him, do you believe in God? And he would say yes. And then he would say no. And then he'd say yes and no. And this mystic was totally right in answering that way, because God is both. He is and he is not. But that's the mystical way of looking at God. But also notice that I have not brought up any of the Eastern thoughts into this discussion at this point. um, other than just mentioning the mystical side. Buddha himself was thought to be an atheist. People in the Buddhistic religion, they pretty much say that God does not exist. And the reason Buddha taught these things is not because he was an atheist, is because all the problems that come up when you become a theist. So Buddha's approach was to say that God does not exist, and also because Buddha felt that that was the last stumbling stone on the road to enlightenment, on the road to meeting God Himself. Any belief of your idea of what God was or is created a barrier between you and actually stepping into God's house and meeting Him for yourself. I think it was Bertrand Russell who said that Buddha was the most godless man they had known, but yet the most godly. And what's amazing about Buddha is that he existed, 26 centuries ago, and he spoke for 42 years continuously. And the things that Buddha said will amaze you because they apply to today's society just as much as it did back then. It's like nothing on the spiritual side has changed so much that he was the greatest scientist on the metaphysical side. So he was, pretty much called himself like a physician for God, even though he didn't believe in God. But don't take me wrong when I say that he didn't believe in God. He didn't believe in a monotheistic view of God, that there was a God, a fatherly figure sitting up in heaven and watching over everything. Buddha believed in the God of Spinoza, that God exists in everything and that everything was God. And your journey on this planet and this journey, your journey in this universe, I should say, is to bring you home. And we are all basically just seeds, human seeds with the potentiality to become gods ourselves. So ponder over that for a moment. Think about it, that we are all just seeds. Many people believe that we already have souls, that you're born with a soul. And Buddha would say that, no, you're born as a human, and the soul is developed when the seed becomes the plant. And then continually flowers after that. And if you want purpose in life, purpose for being on this world and in existence itself, there's no greater purpose than to realize that you are one with existence, that you and God are the same, and the whole journey was to start from finish was just to realize that, to come back home. Okay, that gives my 2 cents into what I felt about Buddha. And here's something that I want my audience to know, is that I'm not a Buddhist. I don't consider myself to fall under any category of any prison. And I feel that all the religions that have been created in this world, they have all become prisons in a sort of way. They don't start off as prisons. Jesus did not start off his religion as a prison, and nor did Buddha or Lao Tzu or Chang Tzu or any of the great masters that have come from the east or the western sides. They start off as liberations, rebellions from the norm. And this is the succession that a mystic is born, a Jesus or a Buddha is born, and then lives, and while he's alive, millions of people prosper from his teachings and become enlightened or become born again, whichever you prefer or how you prefer to phrase it. But then after Jesus died, or after Buddha died, the religions were handed over to other people, and people collected their thoughts and all their writings that they could find about each one of those mystics. But the problem is it's too late. The flower's gone, and a lot of people don't realize that there are more flowers. That those flowers sprouted more flowers. And that's the way existence works, is that it's a continual flowering from one mystic to another mystic. And there's always been at least one mystic alive existing on this planet at all times. There's been one light continually showering and shining on the world. And most of these mystics that have existed down the ages, they don't come out of the religion. I mean, they start off with religion. I mean, Jesus says, "Seek and you shall find," and in a way that is true. But that's only in the beginning, the early stages of your development. At first, on your journey, you have to seek. You have to realize that there is a goal, and try to achieve that goal. But the more you go inside, and the more spiritual you become, then you realize the journey is only halfway over. And Lao Tzu was famous for saying, the opposite of what Jesus said. Lao Tzu said, "Seek and you will miss." But Lao Tzu was talking to a completely different audience than what Jesus was talking to. So it mattered, because the deeper you go into your spiritual journey, you have to dissolve. You have to stop seeking. It's hard to explain, but it's like a trick on a skateboard, where you practice and practice and practice it, and then all of a sudden you do it, and then it becomes second nature. And that second nature of being able to do something without thinking about it is the same as like meditating without meditating. Being there and existing and just existing, and that's the secret to realizing God, and to realizing existence, whichever preferred word you prefer. So I know I said this whole episode was to prove a case for God or for against God. Would we be better off with religion or without religion? And the truth is that I think people need to just grow up. People need to mature. And I don't think that religion allows us at this point that maturity. Sure, you're allowed to love. You're taught love, and you're taught peacefulness and many beautiful things. But when it lacks maturity, then you can never flower. There is no such thing as a seed that stays a seed and doesn't mature and turn into a plant and then eventually flowers. And that's the point. So yes, in the beginning stages, I say yes, religion is needed and God does exist. But towards the end stages, then you realize that you don't need these crutches anymore. You can stand on your own feet. You can experience whether God exists or not on your own. It's your decision. It's your choice, and it can only be your understanding. So I hope that I answered some questions, and I hope this was a insightful talk. Thank you again for joining me. My name is Douglas Grummins, and I look forward to our next talk when we find more inspiration or something else happens in the world where I feel the need that some thoughts of mine might help give a deeper understanding as to how we can overcome the problems that exist in this world. Thank you again for joining me. Once again, my name is Douglas Grummins, and please check out some of my other podcasts. You can find my work on YouTube. I often post most of my videos on Facebook, and give you guys what I can, whenever I can. Thank you again for joining me. Bye-bye.